Hi, I'm really excited on today's podcast to be talking to the amazing Leigh Ewin. We're going to talk about cold exposure. We're going to talk about the effect that that has on your mental state, your performance as an entrepreneur. We're going to talk about the impact that that has had on my business and how Leigh has built up an incredible business supporting other people to do this. And we're going to talk about the fact that I am going to be coming out to Finland really, really soon to do something frankly crazy for my 50th birthday, which is in a couple of weeks. Leigh, I am so excited to be talking to you because I know we have been trying to align our diaries for some time and have this conversation. This is a really important conversation to have because, well, biohacking, cold exposure, mental clarity, focus, all the things that cold exposure does that basically Leigh has taught me have been really pivotal and fundamental in the growth of not just me, but my business. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about cold exposure, the effect that that has on your body, how you can use it to get so much more out of your business, and why Leigh is the person that I know in the world who is best placed to talk about this stuff, because Leigh, you are an expert. Leigh is a health enthusiast. He's a biohacker. We've met on biohacking events, and we'll talk a little bit about how we came to meet as well. But educator, facilitator, Wim Hof, all the things. And Leigh, great to be here. Great to be chatting to you.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been, like you said, it's been a bit like we're trying to weave the schedules together, but we made it. So, and as you mentioned, we're going to be weaving those schedules together again very soon when you come here to Finland.
Should we just start with talking about this then? Because I feel like this is something that is like right in the forefront of my mind right now, because it's not long and I am having that kind of, oh my God, am I really doing this? And of course, I'm really excited to be doing this. But I'm having those moments of what am I letting myself in for, basically? So if you don't already know, I have booked myself onto one of Leigh's retreats in the freezing February Finland. And well, should we just talk about what I'm going to be doing? Why don't you say what I'm going to be doing? Because actually you know more about what I'm going to be doing than I do.
Well, I was a little bit. I had kind of like have a few reservations about doing this because like this kind of like a podcast, because I was wondering if it's going to end up becoming like a therapy session or something. You know, like no. So, but yeah. I mean, for anyone listening, of course. I mean, you know, she's made the big step of coming here to Finland and joining one of my retreats. And in our retreats, I believe we're the only place in the world that can offer like a full extensive, like kind of like a weekend long course where you learn everything about cold exposure, and it culminates with an adventure under the ice. So it's kind of like a free diving, well, like a dive under the ice. That's kind of like everything leads up, all the knowledge, all the training, all the practices as a group lead towards this kind of one moment where you have a chance to go under the ice in a very, very safe environment and a very professionally handled environment. Like I have to say all these things just to
all this trust in you. Don't worry. There's no doubt in my mind that I am in safe hands.
Yeah. So, you know, and like I can say it like, you know, I love cold exposure, right? So I'm an Australian who's come to Finland and settled here. And there's just no way around it. You have to get up close and personal with the cold on some level. So I have some sort of experience of being like I don't know, like an amateur, or just sort of like, whoa, okay, where am I? What's happening? It's really cold here. What's that white stuff on the ground? And you know, my adventure with the cold was, you know, I'm not a skier. I don't like the cross country skiing so much. We don't have so many hilltops here in Finland. We do have a few, but nothing comparable to the French Alps or anything like that. And for me, it was cold. It was all about the cold exposure and diving into the water or jumping into the water and exposing yourself to it. So, yeah, it became a way of life and a big part of my my health journey, you would say.
And now you help other people to do that as well, which is phenomenal. If you don't know Leigh, go and check out his Instagram, because I'm addicted to your Instagram. The algorithm is obviously feeding me all of your stuff, because almost every time I pick up my phone, I see you getting in some freezing cold, icy lake in Finland. And I just keep thinking, this is amazing. Oh my God, I'm going to be doing this in a few weeks. What the hell? And I feel like it's like what I'm doing, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm doing, I feel, is like an endurance sport. Like people would train for a marathon, or people would train to do something else. I feel like it's that big, because it's, let's face it, it's not a normal everyday thing that maybe normal everyday people do. Like, it's one thing getting in cold water. I'm like so used to doing that. Like cold water therapy, ice baths. You know, these are some of the ways that we've been brought together over the last years and months, is through you running workshops that have enabled me and other people to do this. But for me, this just feels different. Like my head is going to go under the water. That's the bit that feels out of my comfort zone.
Yeah, like, at the end of the day, whether it is a marathon or whether it is doing this sort of ice dive experience, they do kind of boil down to the same things, right? Like it is very much a mental thing, right?
Yeah.
So of course we can, a marathon, you can train as much as you want, but it's very seldom that you will really train for a full marathon in a sense. Like it's not so common that someone just goes, oh, okay, see ya, sweetheart, I'm off. I'm going to do my weekend marathon training and do a full marathon. So it's kind of the same with an ice diving experience, you could say, because you can do an ice bath, you can do many, you can read things about it, you can even just, put the cold water on your face to kind of get the experience and the feeling of what it's like to have cold water, ice around your face and your head in a way. But ultimately, it comes down to the same thing as it usually comes down to, and it's a little bit like making the decision that you're going to do it, which you have done. But then even on the day when we're ready to do that, is kind of just saying, okay, here we go, focus, in we go. And a lot of my work as a coach, as a trainer, as a facilitator, often encompasses removing in a way, like the self-doubt for sure, and a little bit the excuses and the what ifs, and I do that through like giving people the knowledge. Obviously the science and what's happening in the body we go through extensively, like what is happening in the body when you go into the cold, what's happening in the body when you go under the water, completely submerge yourself under the water, which we've all done, by the way, but of course not maybe in the same temperatures as we're going to do. And then kind of reinstilling the self-confidence and the giving people the ability to do it, and the know-how to do it as well. So it's like many coaches will probably say the same thing, that they need to, if you're getting someone that's just, after New Year's ready to go to the gym and they haven't been to the gym in many years or maybe even ever, in a way there goes that process where a little bit breaking down some of those things, and then they can have the growth spurt and the sort of like the progression through.
How much of this is a mental game versus physical game? I mean, we know that in a physical sense, we've got to be prepared. And by the way, I want to know what does happen to the body when we go in the water. I want to know the science behind what happens when the head goes under. I think that's really interesting to share, because there are huge benefits associated with this. And this is why a lot of people are interested in cold therapy. But honestly, the biggest thing for me is getting a grasp of the mental side of this. Like, no excuses, no get out clauses, no plan B. There's some words in my head right now. We can do hard things. If we can do this, what else can we do? And I feel like I'm some kind of weird, like, I'm going to get a kick out of doing this. And I know that this is going to fuel me to do so much. I almost think that I can feel it right now. And so let's talk about the difference between the physical side and the mental side, and which is the most important.
Yeah. So like, I mean, like you said, the physical training is you know uh, is kind of limited on some sense, right? Unless like you're really going to do the thing. But of course, having cold shower in the morning, going and doing an ice bath once or twice a week, or even every day for some people, and building some sort of tolerance up in the body is going to help you on some level. Um, but then the mental side of it is really interesting as well, because there's so many you could even say like trigger points when you actually see the situation that, okay, you have all the gear on, that there's two safety divers there with you, and when you look in this, like we cut this big triangular shaped hole out, when you look down, it can look kind of dark when you look down, right? Like it just, like when you see the bottom of a lake, it looks dark that way. Of course, the plus side is when you're in the water, you look up and there's this ice there, and it's very light and very
Oh my
bright,
God.
and it looks and feels very, it's very clear and a very serene kind of moment there. So when you really factor in all these things, there's a lot of trigger points for people, meaning things that might rise fear or have the nervous system start to like peak a little bit in the sympathetic side. So you can think about like the cold, just jumping into the cold. We're talking about taking a breath, holding your breath. For some people, that can also be a little bit of a thing to conquer in themselves. Also, like this enclosed space, in a way, because you have, we make a very big hole so that a few people can go in there and splash about and get in the water. But, there's one way in, and then you follow a safety line all the way down to the other end, of course, where you sort of exit. So just being underwater with a kind of roof on your head, that can be something for someone. It can also be, like I said, the dark thing can also factor in, and there could be a bunch of other things for some people too. So kind of like there's a huge control that you learn, that you have over your body and over your mind in this activity, you could say. And that is a very empowering thing. And I'm saying constantly that, like, it's one of the few things that I can, like, one of the few activities in such a short time, because it's only, it might feel a bit longer the first time around, but it's only 10 meters, right? It's only 10 meters that you go under the water. You're not going so deep under, it's only a meter or something plus, and then you just tow yourself through. But there's few things where in such a short time you can see someone enter as someone and then they exit as somebody else, as to your
Oh my
point.
God.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I feel it. I can see how that happens. It's huge. I actually feel like this is really significant.
Yeah, and like it's to be really honest with you as well, this is not hyping it up or promoting the thing or whatever, but there's not that many places where you can actually do this in the
No.
world. And if you think about the percentile of every single human being on the planet, it is so small percentage of people that would ever, well, A, even consider doing the thing, and then B, actually following through and doing it. And we often talk about getting up in the morning and having the cold shower, and even if you just have a warm shower and then the last 30 seconds or minutes or whatever, it's just running the cold and getting that kind of vibrancy and that sort of energy and that like awake, alert feeling inside the body, and then that being a catalyst for the rest of the day. Now that's the kind of micro level. Now what you're going to do, and what the people come to do, the ice diving or the whole retreat in general, but culminating with the ice dive itself, that kind of can set you up for a much bigger version of that momentum as well. And that's why a lot of people will want to do that for the new year. Challenge the self. And also, you touched on it as well. Like you kind of tiptoed there, but like I'm a big believer of doing. If we do the hard things in life, life becomes easier. If we do the easy things in life, life becomes harder in many cases.
So true. So simple, but so true. And if we think about applying the personal performance, the pushing ourselves, the doing hard things, and seeing the ripple effect of that on our lives or on our businesses or on our careers. I feel like this is really, really important. I always feel so lucky that I'm getting the opportunity to do this, and I totally appreciate that this is, I feel like it's almost like once in a lifetime opportunity. There are so few places that it's possible. And with the credentials that you have and you being the expert that you are in this field, I, I feel like it's a real privilege to get to do this. And I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited for the experience. I'm very excited for the shift in myself that I know I will feel. There's not a scrap of doubt in my mind I'll do it, by the way. I know that I'm 100% going to do it. But do you know what's really interestingly, and I think that this might resonate with you, is that I already feel the shift and I haven't even done it. It's having decided to do it. It's having pushed the button to buy the place. Like that in itself has shifted something in me.
Yeah, that's often the case, right? I mean, like, when you know the why, then the how becomes very obvious.
Oh God, so powerful. And so then let's talk about the why as well. So the why is I want to operate at peak performance. I'm big into biohacking like you are. For me, biohacking is knowing what I need to do to get the best out of myself. I totally love cold therapy. I hate, by the way, getting in a cold shower. That's not for me. But put me in an ice bath. I am okay, but I don't do the cold shower thing.
Yeah, a lot of people find that tricky. And
Yeah.
again, a lot of, and not specifically talking about you here, but that's the one time where you have the true choice to make, really. If you don't have the climate for it and you have to go to a cold pool, or even me, like I have to travel a little bit of distance from where I'm living to go and visit my favorite little lake there.
Your favorite lake.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a commitment to go there.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of like, okay, get the swimsuit on, make sure we've got the towel, make sure you got this, that, and then off you go and you set off and do it. It's like you're kind of like we're talking about the ice dive in particular. It's like already that process of moving towards it. You're kind of in that zone, or you're moving towards it. You're gearing yourself up. But every morning if you jump in the shower, it's right there, and it's like, hey, this is supposed to be my comfort thing. There's the hot water is like this cozy, warm. Monday morning, you wake up and you're like, you got to get out the door for work, and it's so easy to choose that, or it's like, maybe I'll just, I deserve this little warm embrace. So that's why a lot of people find it difficult. But then again, it's like the old, procrastination, or choosing, like if you're not choosing something slightly difficult, even, and especially that you probably know that it's kind of good for you, and that afterwards you feel that like surge of energy and that rush of kind of, oh yeah, okay, let's go, let's get it on. If you're kind of like choosing the easier way out there, what else in the day are you actually going to choose the easier way out and sort of make those compromises or shirk away from? So in a way, a lot of it is not so much like when we talk about discipline, we're not talking about military level discipline or anything like that. It's just about saying, hey, I'll make this commitment to tackle the things a bit head on, and everyone has these things, especially when we go to work. There's many difficult scenarios that we have to face. High performers in the work environment, CEOs, they often are the ones who have to make the big calls and the big decisions, or it is their head on the chopping block, from the board of directors and so on. So
it's very easy to choose the easy stuff in life rather than the hard stuff in life, and turning that shower dial down to freezing cold is definitely a choice for people in the mornings. And I suppose I'm lucky in the sense that I'm able to get in an ice cold swimming pool every morning, and I guess most people don't have that luxury. I totally get that. And if I didn't have that, then I would be doing it in the shower. But if I have the choice, for me, it's more of an experience, like getting my swimming gear on, like it is for you getting in the lake. For me, it's almost like a ritual in the morning. Like, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I set my day up. with my bulletproof coffee, taking it to the pool, getting. And by the way, like in the summer, the pool's quite warm. It's not heated, but it's quite warm. But in the winter, it's freezing. It's really, really cold.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also this, like you said, the ritual. Like, there's some people out there that don't necessarily believe in these like morning ritual things, right? They actually like, hey, it doesn't matter. Like, and sometimes these things are very wise as well. It's like, basically, the success of any which one of your days, pretty much rests upon the amount of level of pain that you're going to go through, or the sort of like the proverbial shit sandwich that you'll eat in the thing, and it's like we each make those decisions. Presumably we're choosing to go to that place of employment, we're choosing to have be involved in that relationship, we're choosing all these things in life, and so like, this concept of pain is a very interesting one, because there's an emotional pain and there's a very physical pain that we have to kind of like go through and get through in pretty much everything we do. Often people are saying, hey, oh man, it's like so painful, I wasn't in I'm just single, I don't have a relationship. And then you've got people that say, oh, this relationship is so painful. So it's like everything has pain, but like just choose your version of it in a sense, and then kind of like conquer that as well. That's kind of the message that the deliverance that the cold exposure can give us, I suppose.
For sure. And for me, it feels really significant about the fact that in a few weeks, I am going to enter a new decade, and I can't quite believe it because I don't even feel like I'm about to be 50, but I am. I've checked. My birth certificate is
Well,
right.
your biological age might be much less because you're so healthy and everything like that.
Exactly. Biohacking. Exactly. This is like biohacking, longevity, eating the right things, looking after ourselves, optimizing our bodies, all of the things that biohacking helps people to do has massively contributed to my energy. And it's my energy that drives me every single day. And it's part of what cold therapy does for me is give me energy. But the significance, and I want to talk about the actual benefits, the emotional, the mental, the spiritual benefits that we get from this, but actually the physical benefits as well, because I think it's really important. Like there's so much science-backed data to support this, but actually for me, it's not just about that. It's about what I get up here, inside my head. But like turning 50 is significant, and I feel like I want to prove to myself that this is how I mean to go on. This is an exciting next decade for me, and I'm going to start it in the most empowering way I know possible. And that it's so exciting for me because all of these things are being pulled together. But let's talk about the benefits.
Yeah, like in a way, like if you're talking about high performers and people that are like in these roles where the bottom line, it comes up, like that's we're all looking at those and running a successful business and things like that. I mean, like you would want people, the immune system factor is pretty high, you want to be healthy. And you don't want your team to be kind of away from work and sick and have all this downtime. So we know that the immune system is strengthened, and I'm a living example of this. I have not been sick since 2012, and I have had, I started doing like proper cold exposure. Like when I say proper, I don't mean like once every Christmas party or once every occasion where the Finnish guys were kind of like in a way forcing me to go in there and baptizing me in a different way, you could say, as when I was new to Finland. But like really taking it on board as a couple of times a week, going there and swimming about in the Baltic Sea or the lake, So, what does actually happen is it improves your immune system. It makes it more robust. It it suppresses certain white blood cells in the body that are, caused from stress, from anxiety. Our bodies are these tight bundles of, like you said, energy. And when we're so sensitive beings anyway, and when some of us are a little bit more sensitive as well, or things change or shift too drastically, and sometimes just subtly as well in life, we start to experience these uncomfortable, these stressful moments, and our bodies react to it. Our nervous system reacts. Our nervous system is constantly looking for, information and data of which it can just basically keep us alive. And anything too far out of the survival mode, and we kind of like the nervous system tries to gather us and get us back into this kind of equilibrium or this homeostatic space, and just all in the name of survival. Nothing further, nothing more, just to survive. And so our bodies produce those white blood cells, which are kind of like the ones that go around the body, and they're actually good. They help us fight off infections, fight off disease, and all these kind of things. But over a prolonged period of time, if those white blood cells are being created because of the stress, because of the anxiety, because of all those underlying factors, then it can be a big problem for us. And unfortunately, there's a very big epidemic of people that have these autoimmune issues, or they find themselves in this chronic illness because of they don't have a way to down-regulate the nervous system, or they don't have any way to sort of reset the white blood cell count in the body in a healthy way. And we know that from studies that that's exactly what the cold does for you don't need to stay in for 15 minutes or anything like that, but even just a few minutes once a week does this in the body. So that's a huge benefit. That's a very big thing for people. Also the metabolic health. So a lot of us, like in the average person, your ability to maintain your health and stave off disease or any infection, anything like this, is ultimately tied towards your metabolic health and how quickly you can sort of metabolize things and sort of like get over the sickness or the illness or the flu-like symptoms, whatever it is. So having a robust like metabolic health is like key factor in this, and we know that doing cold exposure is like hitting on that as well. And there's like a whole lengthy process, and it definitely involves getting the maximum benefits. Involves warming up and heating up yourself, and not running off into the sauna, into the hot, the warmed up car or vehicle, or getting all the clothes on after you've done the cold, and just like going into going back to bed, or rugging up. It involves you working a little bit with that process and allowing the body to take command and take charge. So those are probably I would say they're the two biggest sort of like physical health benefits. But also one thing for sure is the cold is definitely like a very, it has the potential to be a very big teacher and a mirror towards your own nervous system, right? So if you think about it, like when you go into the cold water, it's like, again, the reptilian part of the brain, if you want to say it, like the hypothalamus is communicating constantly. We go in the cold water, it's saying, hey, there's really cold environment here. This is a threat. We shouldn't be here. What's happening? The body temperature shifts slightly and all these things. And it says, hey, here's some energy, here's some adrenaline, here's your heart pounding away, so like you can breathe more and you can actually run away from this thing, or you can fight it in a sense, because it's the fight or flight response in the sympathetic branch of the nervous system. So what other situations during the day and during life are we faced with the same situation, right? It could be a road rage thing. Someone cuts you off on the road and screaming at you somehow. It can be, it can actually, the kids are misbehaving and people are yelling and getting you riled up, or it could be a partner, a relationship. It could be a whole bunch of things. But the nervous system doesn't, in a way, discriminate or doesn't differentiate those things. So when we're in the cold, in actual fact, we have a controlled environment of which we can kind of little bit navigate our way through that, right? And of course, we know that from the breathing and the breath, of course, a big thing for me. I've gone down many rabbit holes with the breathing, and still on my way down there as well. But through the breath, we can kind of like learn to sort of down regulate ourselves, and that would be very, very useful for a lot of people, because all it takes is one sharp email from somebody that's like, oh, and you can already kind of, you probably remember the time where that's happened, and your heart just races a bit, and you're like, oh, and you get a hot flush in your face. Well, the same thing happens in the cold, and through the breath and through managing and mitigating that, we can get our way through.
Because let's face it, running a business, building a career, or whatever it is that we are doing in life. I mean, I work with businesses, I work with experts, I work with entrepreneurs, and it's not an easy path. I was talking to a client this morning, and it's just up and down. We've all seen those, those Instagram posts where there's that kind of like roller coaster. That's what it's like often in business. And so the ability to regulate our nervous system, the ability to be able to calm ourselves down through cold therapy or through breath work, which is so profoundly powerful. Like having these tools up our sleeve at our disposal that we can deploy when we need to, honestly, for me, is like the next level in business performance. There's no point building a business that stresses you out, that makes you feel terrible, that you are not enjoying, that you are not profitable or productive or performing well. Like, what's the point? We owe it to ourselves, but we owe it to our businesses as well, is to be able to manage our situations. And that's why I do what I do. And that's why I'm so interested in this, not just for myself, but so that I can help my clients to get better results in the work that they're doing. I mean, I've experienced some pretty stressful moments this year, and honestly, the importance of breath work and cold therapy, I don't know what I would have done if I'd not had those things at my disposal this year. And I've learned all of this from you.
Well, as to the high performance thing, right? Like, so a lot of high performers, and historically, you could even say like on the surface layer, like men, we really suck at this. Like we're very good at ignoring things. We're not overly at the same level of emotional sensitivity in a sense, or maybe we are sensitive, but we're very good at covering up and very good at like activating ourselves as a distraction, right? So of course it's like a loan that you're taking out, and then eventually you have to pay it back in the form of sleep or in the form of a burnout if it gets to that point and whatsoever. So men are a little bit handicapped emotionally with those things at times, but then you see it the same. It doesn't matter what gender or sex, anything like this. You see it in the high performance arena, because people don't have the time. They just have to keep skipping from and bouncing from one decision to another, one meeting to another, and you can see it kind of unraveling for some people. But ultimately, you're right. It's like as entrepreneurs, it's not easy. It's not a given. You can work every single day, every single minute if you choose. There's always something to do as an entrepreneur, but you can also have whatever time off as well. You are it's your responsibility to do both in a good way. And in that sense, it's very much the same as the nervous system, and how we manage everything. We have the responsibility to get the energy going ourselves. There's other external things that we can, coffee and all the rest, and supplements and whatever else, the ice bath and whatever. But we have the responsibility to like turn up with like you are, like you're mentioning, the cold and the ice bath gives you the energy, and ultimately that's a huge plus if you can get this. Like, you have such an incredible energy about you, and it's a very attractive thing. And in the work environment, or when you're making these business calls or these meetings, like, when you see someone that's vibrant and they're like, they're exuding this, you want to make the deals with them. You feel more connected. You feel more approachable. Whereas if somebody's kind of like red in the face, the hair's a bit scruffled, and they're like they can't concentrate, they can't focus, they're bouncing around all the subjects, they're being rash, they're getting irritable off small things. If someone disagrees with them, it's like, who do you really want to work with? Like, what is it? Is everything okay with that person? That's the CEO of the company we're about to merge with, or whatever it is. So the thing is, we're so the mastery of the modern era, in a sense. Now we're talking big subject all of a sudden, is like, if you really think about burnout, that is the balancing act of the body, right? Everyone's referring to, hey, you just need to be balanced in life. You just need to be balanced. Well, guess what? Having a burnout is the other end of the seesaw. Mm. You've been going like this, and now you're like going here. So right. When all things are said and done, that is a balancing act of the body. So the mastery is to be able to do it as real time as possible, to be able to find the balance and find that middle point as real time as possible. And that's the business I'm in. I know you're very good at that yourself now, and that's what we hope to share with people in the professional arena, because often things don't go our way. There's a lot of things that are out of our control, like in the business sense, not of course the world as well, but when we're under the microscope at work, I mean, we need to be on our game, and we are responsible for how we turn up, and we're responsible for how we react to things as well. But also that's the part that we can influence, and we can do it the way we want to do it.
I'm glad you've said that word, responsibility. Personal responsibility is really important to me, because actually no one else has that. We have to take ownership and responsibility for everything, for all of our own reactions and all of our own actions. And when you're running a business, you are responsible for that business. It's not, I remember the days where I was paid a salary and I could turn up at work, and if I wasn't feeling that great, then I'd still get paid. I mean, you could just go and like put your head down and pretend that you're working hard, and maybe even have a snooze in the corner and no one would notice. Not quite, but like, it's not the same in business, because like I have to drive the ship. I have to make those decisions. I have to be as close to the top of my game as possible, and no one is going to do that for me. I'm the breadwinner. I'm the sole income earner. If I don't work, if I don't feel great, if I'm not performing at my best, the mortgage doesn't get paid. I mean, not quite. But the point I'm making is that I am responsible. And so therefore, when you look at it through that lens, and why would I not do everything I possibly could to perform at my best, so that there's a phrase that I use a lot: when you feel good, you do good. And for me, this epitomizes everything. If I feel good about my day, if I feel good about the work that I'm doing, if I feel good in my health, in my skin, in my mind, I can do anything. And that's how this is playing out and translating in business. And this is what I'm doing with the mastermind. I'm bringing together the business strategy, which is what I've done for the last however many years, with all of this stuff that's on the other side, which is what we're talking about today, which I honestly think not enough people are making a big enough priority of in their lives.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you said, and especially when you're talking about the feel, you do good when you feel good. There is a caveat with that too, though, and that's that, like, the elite level people are able to do the things that suck and they don't want to do, but also do it with more in that kind of good energy. Like, well, it's a necessary evil, or like I said, the proverbial shit sandwich that many people are talking about. So that's where actually the cold comes in, right? Because that's sort of like the difficult thing where, like, if you really, it still kind of amazes me in some way that that people don't kind of realize that when they're going into an ice bath, for example. It's like, when you go in, you lose the breath, right? You lose, like in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like the breath is the number one thing, right? So we know that that's like, it makes up the first step in the lower, well, it was never a real triangle or a pyramid anyway, but, for argument's sake, the basis of everything, right, or of your needs are starting with the breath. So that's taken away. Then you have all these other things rushing through the body, and, every system in your body is fighting away. And then you're constant, like, a minute, let's say you want to stay in there for a couple of minutes, and after a minute, you're still breathing in this, like this. At some point, surely the individual must realize that you kind of like, you're there, like, did you not want to be here? You're kind of breathing like you're running away, like you want to fight it, but like, why did you come here actually? And so in a way, it's really about did you really want to come here? Yes. Okay, so why don't we breathe like we want to be here? It's the same way that, some of us have these meetings that we don't necessarily, do I really need to go to this one? Or this is going to be a tricky one, or a difficult, big decision coming up, blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, you're making the decision and taking the responsibility to turn up and be there. So, like, why not to do it in that kind of the way that you want, right? Yeah. And that brings us down to the breathing. And I'm always, my saying that I'm always referring to is like, you breathe the way you want to live, which is kind of like echoing about what you're saying about, like, feel good, do good. In a way, it's absolutely the same. But there is that time as well with the breathing where, like, there definitely are good times to breathe more when we want to be active. And that's where we can take the responsibility to drive the energy, ramp it up in our own bodies too. And that might be the marathon. That might be, after you finish the ice dive and you get this woo, and all that kind of thing. So
the power of breath's astonishing, though. I mean, the ability to use breath to control how we feel and react in situations, whatever those situations are, whether they're really positive, exciting situations, or whether they're really nerve-wracking and very terrifying situations. The control that gives us, and the knowledge and ability to know how to use that and when to use that, is something that I feel really passionate about. Here's a little story. A couple of weeks ago, I flew back to the UK for a short trip. And I've taken hundreds of flights, probably. I mean, I've never counted them up, but it's hundreds of flights. I've been to lots of places. And I have never had a flight like I had a couple of weeks ago. So we came on the approach to Newcastle to land, and it was December. It was winter. It was dark outside, and there were storms in the UK. And the landing at Newcastle Airport was aborted because of 100-kilometre-an-hour winds. And the pilot came on and said, we're waiting for a plan. We need to divert to Leeds, and we're going to attempt to land at Leeds. The winds are just as high, but the runway is pointing in a slightly different direction. So I think we might be able to do it. What I would recommend you do, what I want you all to do, is brief yourself with the safety procedures in the seat pocket in front of you on the card. And in the event of an emergency evacuation, please leave all of your personal belongings behind. I'm like, okay, right. And as we went down, approached Leeds, it was very, very windy, and we were on one of the smaller planes that are 2x2s rather than 3x3s. So it was, I guess, a light plane, and that was part of the problem. Why it didn't quite have the weight to get down. And the plane was doing this, and everyone on the plane was deathly silent because everyone was like, oh my God. And do you know what I did in that moment? I actually didn't feel scared because I breathed. I took control of my own feelings and my own emotions through breathing. And it was a godsend. And if I had not had the ability or the skill or the knowledge to do that in that moment, I probably would have panicked. Totally cool.
Yeah, exactly. Well done on that. It's like, and the briefing card is that again is the first thing that you read on the card, right?
Yeah.
oxygen mask on yourself before helping anybody else. So in a way, that's the metaphor for, in a way, life. We have to take responsibility for ourselves first and foremost before, and then we can be, if we have dependents or we have other people, then, children or, colleagues or whatever, we're more of use and more of service to them as well in that instance. So yeah, those are, I've also been on one of those flights where, like, just randomly, like, they didn't even say anything. Like, we actually tried to land down, and then it was, we were going back up the other, it didn't feel very good. So it was like something issue was going on. Then, like, oh, we just had a failed landing. So it was also the same. And then you felt the collective atmosphere of the other passengers sort of like, and there was a bit of like this, conversational buzz and uncertainty. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, that's, in a way, if you think about that situation on a micro level, that plane, where people start to have those little conversations, like, I wonder, are we gonna? That's kind of happening on a macro level every single day, right? Because the human brain has 60,000 thoughts every single day, and on average, just 3% of those are new thoughts. They're actually new.
Yeah.
So, like, even if each one of us can just shift, let's say 1%, let's say 2%, like, what kind of impact would that have on ourselves, right? And then the big question also is, like, what kind of, what purpose does it really serve to think always of these kind of, like, what if, we have to be aware and responsible and aware of any risks, and all those sort of things, keep ourselves as safe as possible. But then also, like, sometimes, those emotions and those feelings that we have are really guiding us away from certain things and kind of narrowing our field too much, where we're only, like, living these very, very, in a way, like, black and white lives, in a sense, and they don't have, like, if we veer off this way a little bit, we get to see those colors and we get more paints on the palette to paint this beautiful life that we're all living. So yeah,
exactly. So we've been talking about the power of breath and breath work, and a thought popped into my head just then, and it was of us being in that tent in Ibiza where we were doing that breathwork exercise, and you were guiding everyone. There was probably, I think, at least 50 people, maybe more than that, in this tent. And that was a retreat that I went on in Ibiza, a biohacking retreat. And that might have been where we met, actually. But that was profoundly moving for me. That moment, being in that tent with all of those people, doing the meditation, the breath work, having done the cold therapy, the ice bath before that, and then the ecstatic dance, it was mind-blowing. And one of the big things that I've really learned from you is actually what inspiration means, the word inspiration. And I know you've published a book on this. I'd love you to talk a little bit about your book as well. I've bought your book, by the way. And also we spoke in Helsinki at the Biohacker Summit in July, or about the book coming out and everything. So I think the book is incredible, but also what that stands for and how you talk about the meanings of these words, and that's really, really interesting. Let's talk about the power of breath and what that means, and thinking about what that meant for me in that tent in Ibiza in April.
Yeah, so we kind of already started to touch on that, with these flight stories and things like that. But, a lot of people really, if you kind of corner them and say, hey, listen, do you know why we breathe? And they're like, yeah, because we need oxygen. And it's like, okay, but, like, what does the oxygen do? And then it's like usually a long pause or a long silence. So, like, I think a lot of us forget that the oxygen comes in to the body and is a key part of a chemical process that actually generates and creates a molecule. After we've eaten something, it breaks like oxygen comes in, breaks down the nutrients, and creates a molecule, ATP, which is actually the usable form of energy in the body. So with that in mind, we know that the more you breathe, the more energy you're going to create in the body. The less you breathe, the less energy, like biological energy. Not, there's woo-woo yoga energy and all that kind of stuff too that we love too in some ways, but like for people that want the hardcore science and the true biological meaning of it, like real biological energy is what we're talking about. But it doesn't stop there. Then we're talking about, okay, if you breathe a certain way, you can, we've spoken pretty extensively about the nervous system, so we can impact and influence that. We can also have a look at the lymphatic system, the digestive system, the circulatory system, practically any system in the body, endocrine system, your hormones. We can actually shift hormones in the body and move them in different ways and ask the body to produce and release hormones by breathing in different rates. All of these systems in the body and more, they actually they can be influenced by the breath, either directly or indirectly. Now, that is a huge possibility. And, we talk about responsibility too, right? So when we talk about hormones, not all hormones, but many of them we can mitigate, or we can kind of manage those in a certain way, in many of them. We can literally generate energy in any which way we want in the body from the rate of breath. So this was a very interesting thing for me to discover, because then I was like, oh, okay, so we actually have, in a way, like the breathing's kind of like the remote control to the game, so to say. And you could even go as far to say that the inhale is even like the gas pedal, and the exhale is the brake. Yeah. Because the brake is the thing that slows us down, which is why we're in the ice bath, and we want to calm the systems of the body, and we kind of like lengthen the exhale and we breathe through, we lower the heart rate, we feel more calm and relaxed in our body, and then we can handle the ice bath and feel more safe and feels good. So this was a very interesting thing, and I'm like, I was a little bit like perplexed, like, really? Like, why doesn't everyone want to do that? Like, why doesn't everyone want to have the remote control and have all the buttons and using all the buttons on the remote control, And if things, if things are going fast forward, then you can actually hit the pause button a little bit, or you can kind of dial it back. So this was a profound moment for me. And then over time, I started to, study all the different yogic forms of breathing, the Wim Hof style, and then kind of like, I started to sort of edge towards this, what we would consider like this spiritual or this ritual breathing, where you have these very profound and very deep experiences. And again, like as you've heard me say for sure, and I'm definitely speaking about this in my book, breathing's a very physical thing. Like if anyone who's listening and watching this right now, all you need to do is just like try not to breathe, try not to pull the breath in. I mean, you have to do that physical practice. You have to physically go, okay, now I'm taking air in. Now the exhale is a bit different. That can just fall out of the body, but we can also play with that too. So it's a very physical thing, the breath. And like I said, it has influence on those physical systems of the body. But then there's this sort of emotional thing and these feelings and this, almost the psychological, touch points, let's say, or effects of the breathing, and how we've spoken about those too. You can kind of down regulate, and you can, if you feel unsafe or you feel like the plane's going this, that, you can be, okay, I actually want to breathe calmly now because I want to be calm right now. I want to be focused right now. So I can actually slow things down and just minimize all the thoughts down to just breathing and count the breaths. So there's that side. And for me, that's kind of like this beautiful infinity loop where the two things are coming together and crossing over together. Yeah. The physical meets the emotional. And if we do that in a certain way, or in certain rhythms, certain techniques, and a little bit more of the nose breathing, a little bit less of that, and tweak things a little bit. When we're really in the middle of that that rhythm, that breath, we kind of get access to something else, some other place.
Yeah.
And that's what I talk about, this inspiration. That's what I talk about, where we can find the inspiration.
The access to that thing. Ah, totally. And don't you think that one of our biggest challenges in life is we don't know what we don't know? And when we discover what that thing is, and when we discover the ability to tap into that thing, then it gives us something that we didn't have before.
Yeah. Yeah, like you could even go as far to say is that like what is the true essence of life in a way, right? Like I'm
Yeah.
not I never shy away from talking about the big philosophical questions, as you can tell, but like what fuels us in life?
Yeah.
Like an expression. How do you wish to express yourself in this life?
Yeah.
Keep in mind that what is the opposite of expression? It's depression. So often when we see people that are in these depressed states, they're unable to express themselves how they're hoping to. Then there's many reasons why that might be, but
Mm-hmm.
what does help a lot is if you know what inspires you, because that inspiration in life is like we're witnessing that in each other the whole time. I'm witnessing that in you. You're hopefully witnessing that in me, and those things are very interchangeable. And it's almost like an unwritten language that we're just all coded to understand. It's when we're seeing, like my example in the book, and how I usually say it is like people understand this example is like when you see somebody singing in those, America or Britain's Got Talent show, and somebody has the microphone, they get up in front of the big audience and they belt out a few notes, and no one knows if they're going to be good or not in the audience, and there's a big crowd there, the Simon Cowell's there and all the rest of it. That person's really good. Then the camera person is like seeking out the people in the audience that are having this very excitable, very reactive, very almost unconscious. It's almost an unconscious response that we get when we're like, and then you have someone next to them and say, oh, they're very good. They're really good. And that happens 3 or 4 times, and then they go back to the singer, and then at the last note is sung, the audience stands up, gives them a round of applause, and then what does that person do with the microphone in their hand? But I'm really good. So what's happening there in my observation of this, and my understanding of this, and my feeling of this too, is that there's this kind of like exchange taking place where the people in the audience have definitely witnessed inspiration and what it stands for. And what does it stand for? It means the craft, the knowledge, the patience, the time it's taken, everything that's gone into that, the persistence, the determination, the skill, everything that has been just like molded and poured into that one moment where the person can really hit those notes, and then they can share that inspiration with the audience, and then they get the gift of giving that back to the person in a way as well. And that's why the person's like probably realizing the first time in their life, wow, like I think this thing that I'm so passionate about, I'm actually good at that, and they're kind of receiving that confirmation real time. And I think we're doing that all the time. We're all doing that all the time. But the main issue is that we don't know how to access that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the power of people and connection and being around others that fuels that. And we all need that. And that, just very briefly going back to the tent, that for me is one of the standout things. Is I could have done that on my own, but being around so many other people, that was where the real power for me was. It was like, my God, I feel so connected to all of these people through this collaborative breathwork exercise we're doing. It was like so much of this biohacking, so much of learning all this about myself and applying this to myself, and how it's fueling my business and my personal development and my growth. It's life-changing stuff. It really is. And it's like, that's one of the reasons why I am bringing together the business and the biohacking, because honestly believe that this is the missing piece of the puzzle for experts and entrepreneurs who want to get their business to the next level, whatever that means to them. And I'm really excited that I'm building this movement. It's all about the strategy and systems and the tech and the tools, which are all the things that I really focused on in my business. But bringing in the biohacking and having incredible experts like you inside the program to help my clients to get even more out of themselves, because I think that this is the missing piece of all of their puzzles. This is their edge in business. And I'm just so excited that you're going to be able to impart your knowledge into my clients so that they can climb even higher and just be who they want to be and have access to all of these things that we've talked about, which I feel so privileged and honored to have been able to discover for myself.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, right? Like if you really think about the whole sort of like, I'm big on this like micro to macro thing, because like it means that, in my opinion, the micro is me, myself, and I'm like understanding who I am first and foremost, and turning up in this world as myself, in the best version of myself. And then if I get that right, and I know who I am and what I'm capable of and what I have to share, then I can kind of take that to my community, or it might be my colleagues or employees, or extended community beyond the family and things. And then together we experience that. And if we do that right, then we can take that, as you said, movement, and take that forth into the bigger perspective in the world. And I think, it doesn't need to be said or harped on too much, but we have had like big things happen in the world where people are not doing so well. Mentally, for sure, emotionally, absolutely, but then also physically, and these things are all intertwined. So we can be better and we can do better, but we need to take it ourselves first. We need to take the responsibility for ourselves first. Like you said, in the breathing practice, I mean, you can do that. Like you probably have done some things before, and many people inside of that 50 people have done breathing things. They've okay, let's go. Let's give this kind of breathing a go. And they put YouTube on and away they go. And it's like, well, okay, yeah, that felt kind of interesting, fine. But then it's not until you find the others, and you, like I said earlier, about when we talk about breathing and energy, like biological energy, hormones, happy hormones, all those things, and then you have a group of 50 people breathing in like synchronization with each other and sharing this, like you can just hear everyone breathing and everyone feels safe to just breathe together. There's something that bonds and unites us with that. And that has been also shown throughout history, throughout the different parts of the world, different ancestors, whether it's the like I've said, the Vikings, like, there's something uniting. They're kind of like breathing and kind of chanting in a certain way that's uniting and bonding and kind of calling everyone to move towards the same thing, the same situation. Or it's the choir, like taking a breath and then finding that beautiful note and tuning into one another and that harmony. Or then it can also be witnessed, just one-on-one with somebody that you are caring about. It can be found in an embrace, in a hug. It can also be more intimacy than that as well. But the reason why those things feel so interesting and so special in a way is because we're sharing the same, heart rate. The hormones are being produced and released in the same way. The energy production is the same. Like all the systems in the body are synchronizing and like mimicking, or like moving together, let's say. And we can find it with one person, we can find it with a group of people, we can find it hopefully with further afield. And in the book I'm writing definitely about that, how we could actually, there are examples of this happening where if people just meditate, if big groups of people meditate at the same time, that has a huge impact on the greater community. in fact, crimes go down, and these kind of violent things stop happening, and people are more inclined to be happier and give and share with each other as well.
The data is remarkable.
Mm.
Should we talk about your book, and then what I'd love to do is pull it all together, because we've talked about cold water therapy, we've talked about the physical effects of getting in ice cold or freezing cold water, not just on the body with immunity and inflammation and metabolic health, but we've also talked about the discipline and the mental game that's part of that. And both, there's so many benefits. The benefits are huge, really, really far reaching. And then we talked about also breath work and how we can control our emotions, our reactions, our physicality, how we think, how we feel through the power of breath, and actually knowing how to access that, I believe, is one of the best things that we can have in our lives, but also in our businesses, because we're going to have the tough moments. We're going to have the awkward conversations. We're going to have the bad decisions. Life is not easy. Business is not easy. So the more tools we have at our disposal to deal with this, the better we will be, the better our businesses will be. And let's talk about your book and where people can buy it. And we'll put all the details in the show notes as well, where people can connect with you if you're interested in any of Leigh's retreats, is ice diving. Remember what we said about there being so few places in the world that you can actually get to do this. We're going to put all of this information so that you can access it all as well in the show notes. But let's just briefly, before we wrap up, talk about your book, because your book's incredible.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, when we talk about biohacking, there are so many things that fall under that umbrella. We're talking yoga to nutrition to how you work out in the gym to recovery to supplementation, and we're talking about now it's peptides and all kinds of stuff that were completely taboo and probably frowned upon maybe some years, maybe just 5 years ago or 10 years ago or something. So when we're looking at individuals, especially people that you're dealing with day to day, and people in this business setting, entrepreneurs, high performers, talking about peptides all of a sudden, it's that's way over here somewhere. But even if for some people, even the cold is still a little bit over there somewhere. But breathing and the breath is something that's kind of the starting point with everything. That is this, you can't even chew the food or nourish yourself without breathing, obviously, you know what I mean? And figuring out how you're going to do that through your nose, all those things. So I can catch a lot of people there. And then when you start to explain all these effects and what you can actually achieve with the breathing, and where you can go with it, literally meaning focus and clarity on certain things and connecting with other people, then it starts to become this very, very important foundational thing to kind of get right. And then we also understand from breathing in a certain way, you're going to have the hygienic way to breathe is through your nose and all this sort of thing too. So for me, that became a passion and almost like an obsession on hopefully a very healthy way. But ultimately, the whole book and my sort of existence, whether it be through the breathing, whether it be from the cold and other things that I'm doing too in my coaching, I'm here for the change. I'm here to see people be able to shift or change in themselves, right? And we can get a big dose of that in the cold with the ice diving. There's a huge shift that can happen there, and as you said, it's already kind of happening. But even just teaching people and offering this possibility to make the shift and make the change real time, that's really very powerful thing for most people when they actually feel hey, I can really do this. I get what you're talking about and I'm going to do it now. And they do it. Then there's this other big thing as well, the inspiration, like you mentioned. That to me is like the driving force with everything. Like a life without inspiration is like a very solemn sort of, desolate existence in many ways. So then it's really important to be able to be connected with ourselves and understand like what we, to really reclaim a little bit the power, not to go into the cliches too much, more than we already have in some ways, but like really, really to understand, like literally through your own breath, you do have your power. You really do have it. And then to sort of like sort of declutter all those thoughts, those 60,000 thoughts, and just say, hey, just like you can't meditate, okay, just focus on the breath. Like giving someone this possibility to like feel confident about themselves again and get them set them back on the path again, because we all have it inside of it, right? There was one TV show that I did here in Finland. It was called Superhumans, and I was freaking uncomfortable with that. And I'm like, please, I was like in my head, I'm like, please don't be this kind of show where you're like saying, hey, this guy's a superhuman, da 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 da. Thankfully, when I talked with the director, he had the vision that the whole show, the host of the show was to come with me, and I took him through all these cold things, like every single which way you could do cold. He did that, and of course, at the end, he does the ice diving. And this guy, by the way, couldn't swim even. He had never been swimming before or anything like that, too, to make it a little bit more pressure for himself. But when they had told me that the vision of the show was that they believe that everybody has the little superhuman inside, and that people like you, like me, like you, actually I say it to you now, and people like me, they said, we have ways of which we can help people observe this in themselves, and there's obviously different ways we get there, but ultimately giving that, instilling that in people again is like a very powerful thing, and that will multiply the things in life that like the good in your life ultimately. So that's really the powerful thing about breathing, about cold. They're all interconnected anyway. And in my book, I'm definitely looking at the deeper meanings of those things. Like you mentioned, even the word, like the book name from the get-go is called Respiritual Awakening. And yes, that triggers a lot of people, because it's like, oh, another spiritual book. But actually the meaning of that is based upon like the Latin meanings of the words, because I think that we have got, like, we say words to each other, like this age of social media and just like chatting around and throwing words around to each other and not having the meaning and not knowing why we say those things and what the purpose are, is kind of hurting us a little bit, and it's very surface and shallow layer. So I looked at the wordage, and I'm looking at spirare in Latin, which means spirit. And then when you look at this word translated to English, it means breathe, to breathe. Yeah. So in Finnish language, even henki is soul or spirit, and hengitä is like to breathe. So these words are like clearly related and stem from one another. And it's the same in many different languages. So in actual sense, just means again, recycle, repeat, and spiratory, respiratory system, the respiratory system in your body. It's re-spiriting, re-breathing, and relearning that is the spiritual system of the body.
Yeah.
And then it's just being awakened, aware of that, right? So that's kind of the whole premise of the book, and looking at things in a very different way. So the objective of that book was definitely to enter the conversation of breath work with some very unique, hopefully unique thoughts. And, like I provide exercises that I have made myself. So at the end of each chapter, people can really experience what I'm talking about. One of the chapters, by the way, is called Expire. Expire is to breathe the last breath. So we even do an exercise where we kind of microdose death, so to say, in this one breathing practice. So taking people there, because obviously if you microdose a death in a way, you can bounce back and be more humble and more grateful and full of gratitude for the life that you still have before you.
These bigger conversations and the meaning behind the book is really important for us to all have with ourselves. I really value the work that you do, and I think I'm really happy to be chatting to you today and getting this out to even more people, because it counts for a lot. It counts for a lot in life. It counts for a lot in business, and just really privileged and honored that we get to do these collaborations together. I'm coming on your retreat in the next few weeks, and you are going to be supporting my clients inside the Biohack Your Business program so that they can learn some of this thing for themselves, which is a really, really big privilege. So thank you. Really enjoyed our conversation today. Thank you so much for joining me
My
today.
pleasure.
And I hope, I mean, I'm going to get to see you in a few weeks, which is just brilliant. And we can continue this conversation in person, face to face too. Thank you, Leigh. It's been great. We're going to put all the details for your book, your retreats, how people can connect with you in the show notes as well. And I would, listening to this, I would hugely recommend that you go and connect with Leigh, because the work that Leigh does and how he helps people to connect with themselves is really great.
I appreciate your words, and we do definitely can fit a couple more people in. One thing that I absolutely forgot to mention as well, and like we didn't touch on it too much before we go, is that like in a way this retreat this weekend is designed for actually anyone of any experience, right? So you don't have to be a biohacker for 10 years already to qualify to come. You come as you are, and it's designed in a way where you can just enter as you are, and I build everything, and we guide you all the way through so that you're ready to do it, do the dive if you choose at the end. It's all a choice as well. So just wanted to add that in there too, because sometimes people may feel like it's such a so high bar thing. Of course, we make sure everyone's healthy and all those things beforehand and so on. But like, it's set up that anyone who's seeking the change and looking for the shift can attend. Yeah.
Amazing. It's going to be great. I'm very nervous and excited at the same time. If you've loved what me and Leigh have talked about today, if you love the idea of leveraging breath, cold water therapy, if you want to be able to have sharper focus, more motivation, more energy, all of these things will help you enormously. They've helped me. They've helped so many of my clients. And this is what we are bringing into the Biohack Your Business Mastermind. Strategy alone is not enough. You've heard me talk about this so many times. I would love you to get your name on the wait list so that you can step in and work with me and all of the other Biohack Your Business experts so that you can take your business to the very next level. If you feel like you've hit a plateau, if you feel like you're scratching the surface of what's possible, then these things will help you so much more than you realize. Pop your name on the list. The link is in the show notes. And I would love to support you to grow more profits, more impact, more personal satisfaction, fulfillment, and joy, and improve your health and longevity. This is where it's happening inside the Biohack Your Business movement. Thanks for listening today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and I will catch up with you on the next show.